Welcome to the Leverage Your Potential podcast. This podcast is hosted by the Director and Assistant Director of Menlo College's Office of Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad, Dylan Houle and Kelly Davis, in partnership with Menlo's Content Creation Club.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second in our coffee chat series with Menlo College alumni. I am your host, Dylan Houle, and I'm the Director of Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Bianca. Hi, Bianca.
Hi, everyone.
And we're joined by Menlo College alumni, Alicia Young, goes by Allie. Hi, Allie. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be with you folks today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to have this conversation with you, in part because you are such an engaged alum at Menlo College, and you have such a rich history here, both as a student and afterwards. And we're really excited to get your perspective on what you've been up to during this whole coronavirus pandemic, what advice you have for students, and maybe get a little bit of the Menlo history in there as well. So let's go ahead and start with, the first question, which is, who are you? Give us a little background on what your job is right now, when you graduated from Menlo College, what you majored in, and a little bit of your day-to-day.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. As Dylan said, my name is Allie, and I graduated from Menlo in 2014. I graduated as a marketing major. I then continued on and began a career in the Silicon Valley as a business development rep for a mature startup. This mature startup was around 9 years old. I received excellent training from them and built my career from there, joining smaller startups and expanding my skill set around business development, customer success, and now recently transitioning more into a revenue operations and enablement role, leveraging all of my experience from sales development, business development, and customer success.
That's really great. So as I understand, you started as a business development rep, and then now you're transitioning into revenue, right? That's really great. And marketing, I'm trying to create a path in my mind. And I'm curious to know from you, what do you think is a typical career path for people who work in sales and business development?
Bianca, this is such a loaded question. If you would have asked me 6 years ago when I was just starting my career and fresh and hungry, I would have told you I thought my career would be somewhere way different than it is now. Where I am now is I'm being able to optimize all of the different business knowledge I've attained at these different organizations I've belonged to. When you work in business development, depending on what your goal is and what you want for yourself, depends on the track you go. Do you want to work for a larger organization? Do you want to go more of the consulting route? Do you want to work for a larger company and sell? Do you want to start with a larger company, get good training and get good marks under your belt, and then go and move on to lead a team at like a smaller organization and take your expertise of how organizations are run successfully and apply those to smaller organizations? Like, honestly, in business development with a business background, the sky is the limit. You get to architect your career however you want. That's why this new opportunity I've been presented with my current organization, I'm in this great position. I've worked at the top of the funnel where I understand the leads that are coming in to our inbound marketing from our inbound marketing funnel. I understand our process because I've built and developed the inbound process of how that lead goes to get to an actual person who is that business development rep, talks to them, understands what their BANT is, their budget, their authority, their need, and their timeline. And then if it's qualified, if it's not, passing it on to the sales rep, understanding what that process looks like, and then identifying the process for like a close win. How does that contract get to our billing team? Is it automated? Right now, it takes our team like 19 clicks to get a contract created, not even sent, and then they have to copy that information. So using this knowledge to better automate systems and apply knowledge. So back to your original question about a career path, you can do anything. If you want to dream it, like you can, right now with Corona, you can create roles. There is so much need within within industries here in the Silicon Valley around understanding how people interact better with their prospects, understanding their prospect flow, understanding how to write better messaging. There's just so much opportunity within business development. Shoot, if you don't even want to talk to people or be around, customers or prospects, you could work on the marketing side, and you can, create content to support those teams so that they can sell better. You could be a part of enablement or L&D, learning and development, where you are creating the onboarding to train new hires about your organization on how to use your product or the service you provide. You can go anywhere, like literally anywhere.
And that's one of the things that we are always impressing upon marketing majors is the world is your oyster. And then in the world of sales specifically, you can go into 100% commission-based type of roles. You can go into salaried roles, and the differences therein within the sales ecosystem is quite extreme, but also fun to explore. Let's contextualize what you're talking about, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
The company that you work for, what do they do, Panoply?
We are a data management platform that enables small to medium-sized businesses to ingest their data into a data warehouse so that they can get it all cleaned together and funnel it downstream into a BI tool, so a business intelligence tool. And what a business intelligence tool does is it helps you take all of your data in numeric formats and in tables and visualize it in pretty tables so that you can best understand what your metrics look like in visual format.
Got it. One of the, and going back to what I was mentioning about salary, for students who are primarily used to earning an hourly wage, I'm wondering if you can describe the different payment structures, the pros and cons of each of a 100% commission-based sales role, a commission plus salary role, or just a 100% salary role. What's your take on that, and what have you appreciated in your career salary-wise?
All right. So I only have experience with commission and salary. I have never held a commission only role, but I know people who have. I would say that your 100% commission only are people who are hungry and not afraid. They are I struggle to say you're natural born salespeople, but you're people who are just naturally not afraid to jump into something that is unfamiliar. They don't have that hesitance of hearing no. They just dive headfirst and totally immerse themselves. And I mean, it all has to do with the company and the product and how your attachment is there. There are Mark Cosglow. I'll speak about him later as I discuss, people that I look up to. But Mark Cosglow is the first sales rep at Outreach.io. Outreach is a sales engagement platform that is helping companies automate at scale, but in a personalized way. And Mark Cosglow was their first employee as a sales rep, and he was 100% commission. He was 100% commission with a family. And he speaks about like his hunger and like his drive about why he took on a role at 100% commission, being that he believed in what Manny Medina, who is one of the co-founders and CEO, and his team were building and providing for sales team. I think 100% commission roles don't just have to do with your innate capability. It has to do with what drives you as well. If you're somebody who wants a steady paycheck, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you want guaranteed money, a salary plus a commission is a better format, or a totally salaried role. The challenge with the totally salaried role is that's it. What you see is what you get. And I don't want to say there isn't necessarily incentive to perform better, but there isn't that icing on the cake that you could do more, or you could do better, or you could achieve better. But with commission roles of any variety, there is someone you answer to who sets that goal. So that is also a challenge of knowing from quarter to quarter that goal could change depending on your leadership or how the organization is trending, depending on the market, whether or not you're currently fundraising. If you're fundraising, a lot of times those numbers go up because you're really looking to perform for investors and to show them that you have strength and market share when you're trying to get those new funds to raise another round. So personal opinion, I would always go with a salary plus a commission, because what it does is it gives you a standard of living so you can pay your bills, because 6 months out of school, believe it or not, your student loan payments will start rolling on in. So for me, I found that having a salary and knowing that I had something always to achieve better for, was something that motivated me within my career to do better and to achieve more.
Yeah, my father is a salesman, and over the course of his career, I think one of the most challenging aspects in sales, especially when you're working on commission, is how reasonable your targets are that are set by leadership. And over witnessing my dad's career over 25 years, some bosses would come in and just set these what he would describe as unrealistic, and they would seem unrealistic based on what was sold last year, what the market was doing, etc. And so there's an element of, when you go into those commission only roles, really needing to trust your leadership to set you up for success and give you a goal that you can actually achieve. So I hear you on that.
And I genuinely don't think I know one person who has out of school taken a commission only role. A lot of times, even now, I'll get like job requests like, oh, here, come be an entrepreneur of, starting your own insurance company or being like an insurance agent. And I feel like these can be kind of catchy for students, but equally pitfalls, because like becoming a real estate agent after college, there are still courses and things you have to pay for in order to achieve those certifications or to be able to sell insurance. So just making sure that they don't feel that desperate times lead to desperate measures, because there are lots of options out there to get foots in the door.
I'm really glad that you mentioned those, additional certifications and kind of continued learning that you need to do for certain types of sales roles. Insurance, you mentioned. One of the partnerships that we've developed here at Menlo College is with SV Academy and Ramped Careers, and there's actually quite a few of similar fellowships and companies that try and bridge the gap between the classroom learning of a college or university and the real world skills that are needed in a sales development role. And I'm wondering, now that you've been in this industry for a while, for about 5-6 years, what did you not get taught at Menlo College that you could only learn on the job? And what could Menlo College or other colleges and universities add to their curriculum so that students come out career ready for these types of roles? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, let's see. I think one of the biggest learning curves of joining a company post-college is learning their tech stack. So in sales, that's typically like a CRM, like Salesforce, sometimes HubSpot. There are a few other smaller players. Microsoft Dynamics is another CRM, along with Sugar CRM. But understanding like the different lingos or how the tools play, like what each one is responsible for. Not necessarily diving into each particular tool, because that's very excessive, but understanding what each tool kind of plays a part and why it plays a part, and how those tools play together. Equally, I think lingo within the business development, realm, like how to start conversations, how to talk to different types of people. I have a huge shout out to my very first manager, Becky Elenes at Aptus. She is a phenomenal trainer. She came from Oracle and I believe is now at Google. And she taught us etiquette. I know it sounds really silly. I did etiquette when I was a kid. But as a professional, there are things that you don't even think of when having a conversation. Or when you're at a conference or at a networking event, you always hold your drink in your left hand because you shake with your right, and you don't want your right hand to be sweaty and dewy from the beverage you've been holding. Like, you don't have to wipe your hand down your pant leg.
Wow, that is like a life hack right there.
Right? Becky,
right?
next level. I just, there were so many aspects at this organization. They put us through an 8-week academy, which was pretty intense. It was very much like college. You learn a new product piece of the product roadmap every week. Then you presented it. You learned a canned demo. You were able to present on it. We really had a structured idea of how to learn the product, not just at this organization, but at continuing as I continue my career onto other organizations. I applied that same way that I learned at my first organization, my first company, so that I didn't have to go to an organization or company that was a Series C or a large business that had a training program. I knew how to teach myself or how to learn. I knew the questions I needed to ask so I could understand the product in a way that I was able to write messaging that then, brought people in to have meetings, which then sold the product. So understanding, like really diving into the initial pieces of training, looking for those pieces that teach you not just the etiquette, not just the stack, but how it all plays in together to help you elevate yourself, to help you grow, to add to that toolkit. Not to just look at it like, okay, I've done this role, I'm ready for the next, I'm ready for a promotion. Like, what do you need for this role to master here and to start to build your next and to keep growing that in tandem as steps continue? I think helping students not just think about the first job out of school, but with the idea of what they have or the knowledge they have, what do they see as a 5-year goal, as a 5-year roadmap of what they're trying to achieve? And if they can't map that now, like how do they map that once they're in their first job? How do they start to think in that mindset?
Wow, I love all of this. I think it's really great. Thank you for sharing those, Ali. And I love that you also mentioned that your first manager was also a mentor for you, and she gave you some great tips, just as the life hack that I remember forever now. I have to admit, I've been through that before with the drinks and conferences. And I also remember when me and you first met, when it was mock interview day, we were both scrolling through the resume contest book, and you gave me some really useful tips for my resume as a woman specifically, and I love those. So I also want you to share a little bit of that with our audience, and based on your experience and all the years you have worked as a sales development, what are the 3 key pieces of advice you like to pass on to students that are interested in working in business development?
Absolutely. So being a business student, I feel like most of us have seen the Glenn Ross movie, all right? So everyone knows the ABCs of selling. Always be closing. So that's sales 1.0. That's kind of like the old mentality of sales. Sure, you got to be closing to make money. Yeah. But in order to make that money, you have to always be curious. That is rule number 1 to business development. You have to always be asking more questions. If you think the conversation has ended, you have one more question you could ask. Another why, another how, another where, another when. Like, there's always another question to dive a little deeper. And that's ultimately, like, that's the main thing about business development. You have to be persistent. LinkedIn is peppered. My feed is peppered constantly with people saying, quit screenshotting bad SDR emails and nitpicking them here. Like, don't do that here, right? They're peppered with that. So instead, we should always be consulting those SDRs and like helping the industry understand that role will not stop messaging you unless you tell them, hey, leave me alone. No, I'm not interested. Like, their job is to keep bugging you until you literally explicitly tell them no. Their job is to keep knocking. And if they don't keep knocking, they're probably not doing the job right. But I look at those SDRs who are getting blown up on like LinkedIn as like, oh, this person just doesn't like, they keep writing me. They just don't get a hint. I'm ignoring them. Like, why not just respond? I personally, having grown my career in sales development, take just about any call. As long as an email is somewhat personalized, as long as it's not totally like, here, learn all about my product. You want to book a meeting? No, I don't actually. But if you took it, I give you a lot of information on my LinkedIn. If you took time to even glance at my LinkedIn, and you could make a connection to just about anything, And if you wrote that, I would take the time to learn, because what does that do? That teaches me about a product that is relevant to my role, or that could be relevant to my role, and how that could help me either now or in the future. So for me, always be curious, and always keeping that in the forefront, along with continued learning. This can be, I know that Menlo provides the LinkedIn learning along, and I believe that Menlo College extended email addresses for a year for recent alums. So that's awesome. So please, students, alum, utilize that LinkedIn learning. There are lots of great podcasts out there. One of my personal favorite is Mark Cosglow's over at Outreach. He does the Sales Engagement podcast. There's Beck Holland, who can be found on LinkedIn. She's at Chorus. She does Flip the Script and did a roadshow on how to write amazing email content as an SDR that is scalable, that you don't have to literally write the same email 5 billion times. You write 1 or 2 personalized sentences and then you send. And also like different books. I talked about Outreach earlier. They wrote a really great book about a year and a half ago called Sales Engagement. And it's learning, let's see, it's called Sales Engagement, How the World's Fastest Growing Companies Are Modernizing Sales Through Humanization at Scale. And this is the future of sales. There's like this old mentality of sales of like you push the deal, like old car salesman type of mentality. Sales is really transitioning into this consultative business partnership role. So learning and understanding that at the business development level about how you can build your toolkit by utilizing a lot of the different tools and platforms at your disposal. There's also saleshacker.com. They offer a lot of content similar to Ramped Careers, where they have different like white papers where you can learn, or different blog posts by thought leaders in the industry who help you understand different ways you could learn based off the industry you're in, or the industry you want to be in, or the specific role you're in. If you're closing, or if you're doing business development, or if you're doing operations, or if you're doing customer success. They offer different ways to help support you to continue that education in ways that are free. A lot of different companies do webinars. You can look for those even now if you're looking to learn and grow. A lot of these tools like Outreach and HubSpot and Salesforce offer free or severely discounted things for students. Try and take advantage of things like that. And I think my last piece of advice is don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. Because honestly, that is exactly where the growth happens. It sounds super cliche, but until you stand up, until you walk out the door, until you make yourself feel weird in the back of your throat and head and neck and ears, you're not doing it right. You have to, especially in business development. If you don't pick up that phone in sales development training and business development training, I train SDRs that they don't send an email for their first 90 days. They just make calls. Because if SDRs, sales development reps, and BDRs, business development reps, find comfort in hitting their quota in email, they'll never pick up a phone. They'll never find that comfort. And that comfort happens on the very first day of your first job.
I love all that advice, especially about picking up the phone. I think one of the nice things for me about the coronavirus, if there's silver linings here, is that Zoom has almost become the default rather than long emails or phone calls. I find myself Zooming a lot with people I may have just been doing an email exchange.
Yep.
It's just been so easy, and it feels more comfortable than the phone. And it's just an interesting dynamic how each one of these communication channels makes you feel a different way, or your level of comfort is different. But to your point, I always advise interns when they're going into their first internship, if you have a question, pick up the phone. You're going to get an answer more quickly and get on with your day. And 2, that's kind of how it works. You want to be able to be comfortable on the phone. And the other thing that you mentioned there that I really liked was that insistence that's required as a sales development representative professional, constantly going back, knocking on that door, calling until you're explicitly told no. And I relate that to the advice we give students about job search. You know, you need to find ways to personalize your approach to every company. You need to be insistent on the follow-up until you get that rejection letter. You need to find who in the company am I supposed to talk to? Who's the decision maker here? So, you know, when you're applying for a job, having some basic sales skills is very beneficial. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And equally, always making sure post interview that you're asking for feedback. Even if they don't extend the job, like feedback is always great. And honestly, it's how you know companies you want to work for in the future. If companies aren't willing to give you feedback, they're not worth your time. You're worth that feedback. You're worth that every moment of them helping develop you that you took in learning about their organization and having a conversation with you. It doesn't take much for them to say, hey, like this is what we were looking for and it wasn't a fit. And it might say, hey, like you have like really great interviewing skills, or we really like this about you, but we're looking more for that. It helps you understand more about how you interview. I personally love feedback. If a company doesn't provide feedback, I look at that like, I'd say almost a disrespect, because as I tell my mentees now, like when you interview for a company, it's a two-way interview. Sure, you need that job, but they equally need to fill it. Sure, they're going to pay you for that job, but they're equally have a responsibility to help build your career and help advance you. So making sure that you feel like you have your questions answered, that you feel like a relative equal within the conversation and not that you're being spoken to or interrogated. Like making sure that you walk into a conversation with that level set, because that exudes confidence to start with, and that helps on its own.
That's so true. I just read a post on LinkedIn as well, as we were mentioning LinkedIn a couple of times. As a recruiter I don't recall if it was a recruiter, but they were justifying the lack of feedback as a way to avoid lawsuits. So they say if we explain it too much, we might get into a reason that it's read in a wrong way, and then can call into diversity issues and whatever issues that we could think about, and then turn into lawsuits. And then I'm like, okay, and I kind of bought into it. But now that you say it, if they're not willing to provide you feedback, they're not worth your time, and they're not a great company anyway. I think that's true. I don't think it would be a culture fit for me if they're not willing to give feedback for people who have spent their time and energy on them. So thank you for reminding me of that. And I think it's a great reminder for all of our recent alums who are out there and looking for jobs, and for the students who are also looking for their fall internships as well. Thank you. I think the feedback will be great and it's needed. And when we're talking about getting out of the comfort zone, I just got this piece of advice yesterday from my internship boss, and he said, you have to put yourself in a situation where you feel vulnerable. And if you don't feel vulnerable, that's when you actually are. So if you're feeling confident and like everything is good, that's when you're vulnerable, not paying enough attention, not thinking about everything that could go wrong. But if you're feeling vulnerable and planning ahead, that's when you're not vulnerable. And I just thought that was brilliant. And I think it's really what you're saying, like that's getting out of the comfort zone brings you growth. And if you're not out there, you're not going to grow. And thank you for sharing all those beautiful advices with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that as well, Bianca, about feedback, HR departments being very careful and, kind of their standard template rejection letters that don't give you a lot of information. But what's interesting is, if you come in and you make a good impression, but you might not be the right fit, you can kind of have a side conversation with that person you interviewed with and not have it go through the formal HR channel and just say, hey, I really enjoyed meeting you. It'd be great to stay connected on LinkedIn. And hey, do you have 15 minutes for some coffee so we can talk about how I can improve for my next interview, because I really admire your career path, or whatever it might be, and kind of just flip it into an informational interview and almost a networking opportunity. Like, hey, I didn't get the job, but I want to keep you in my network. Let's talk. What do you think about that, Allie?
I think that's a great bridge, Dylan. Equally, like using that if you're speaking to like the recruiter or HR or the hiring manager, even those are the people who are rejecting you, turn around and ask if there's a different role within the organization that you're more qualified for, that they see a better fit for your skill set. Because then that doesn't put them open to, that gives them the option to say like, we liked what we saw and we could see value, or we'll keep in touch. Or it gives them the option to say, no, we don't really have anything right now, but let's stay in touch. So it's back to being like always curious, continuing the conversation, and definitely bridging, definitely using that as a network, because even when someone says no, they won't stay at that organization forever. Chances are they'll be there 24 to 36 months. Yeah. If that, I think the life cycle of a recruiter in the Silicon Valley is 15 months at an organization. So next year they could be somewhere else. So that mattered. That's how you build a LinkedIn network. That's how you meet new people. And all of a sudden you have a friend who works at Google who's a recruiter and you're in too.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The person that you're interviewing with today could be at a different company tomorrow. You make the right impression. You might not get the job at one company, but they'll remember you for the next. One of the things I wanted to chat with you about is your role on the Alumni Council. The Menlo Alumni Council, the MAC. We have a really, I think, good momentum going on with our alumni community over the past couple of years, and you've been engaged the whole way. So let's pivot away from the career stuff for now, and let me just ask, what has your experience been like as an alumna, and what motivates you to stay engaged, and what would you say to soon to be alumni like Bianca, or alumni that are out there listening to this who are thinking, it's been a while since I've connected to Menlo. I want to get plugged back in. What would you say to them are kind of the benefits and the perks of staying connected, and what do you like about it?
I have a unique situation or experience with Menlo, and Menlo was a convenience for me, or that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be somewhere I came and finished my degree, just so I could get it done. Because I was at that tail end. I almost finished, but not quite. And Priscilla took a chance on me. She invested in me, as Priscilla does. And that kind of lit a fire in my belly at Menlo. While I was here, I think I was known, like my professors knew who I was, and I had some friends, but I was a commuter student. I wasn't here to make friends. I wasn't here to go to a dance or a party. In fact, I've never seen the inside of a dorm room.
Wow.
But the fire that someone cared about me in the way that Priscilla did, and then the way that my professors did, Miriam Marar, Leslie Sakurka, the experience I had with the people here, like it left an imprint on me. So I couldn't not be involved. Those types of things matter to me. And like the students I continue to meet, and like how intuitive and entrepreneurial and just thought leaders for being as young, or I don't want to say inexperienced, because age has nothing to do with experience. But people at Menlo are special. There's no doubt about that. So being able to give back to that special, to give someone else that opportunity that was given to me, like if I could share a post that gets you a job, if I can help intro you, if I can say one sentence that will help redirect or change your perspective on how you're looking at your future of your career right now, like if I can help with that to me is so much more valuable than closing a big sales deal in my role. Like I see so much more value in giving back to the people below me, because that's exactly how women have broken the glass ceiling. If you don't turn back around and like put your hand down to help someone else up, then what the heck did you just do it for?
Wow, that's such a great point. And with Bianca's leadership of the Wild Club, the Women in Leadership Development, I really feel like we're making some really solid connections between the alumni community and the student community. I don't know, Bianca, if you had any thoughts or a question or a comment on that.
Of course, I love that. That's amazing. First of all, I do want to say that we want to see you engaging with Wild this upcoming semester. We would love to hear more from you, and especially like I have gotten so much advice from you, and the people who will listen to this podcast will as well. But I'm sure there are some freshmen coming to Menlo that will participate in Wild, and I'm really excited to have you join us as well. And when we're talking about breaking the glass ceiling, right? This is the main question we hear as people who believe in women empowerment and gender equity. What do you wish to see in the upcoming years that will help us getting closer to gender equity?
Oh, okay. So for starters, let's see our women of color, specifically our Black sisters, our Asian sisters, our Latinx sisters. Let's see them make equal money, please. And then let's see all of us make the same as men for the same work. Let's start there. I'm really happy with COVID right now, guys. I think COVID is going to really level the playing field, especially for moms, especially for single parents, and for women. Because in a lot of ways, I don't have to maintain certain social norms anymore. I don't spend 90 minutes getting ready for work in the morning than to commute an hour. So I still get ready in the morning, 30 minutes versus 90 minutes, and I don't have a commute. Great. Now I can wake up in a reasonable hour, or I can put my time to doing something that actually moves the needle, grows myself. I'm currently working on my master's. So I would much rather put an hour into reading in the morning than, having to straighten my 36 inches of head hair, or, some other awful social norm that I have to conduct in. I think that it's just going to level the playing field, and we're going to be able to live and do what we want and how we want, because our performance will speak for us, not what we look like, not how we look like, not how we present ourselves in a physical format. That I think is going to level that playing field in an equality fashion, even into able-bodyism, because as we know, that is a prejudice too in the workplace. So I think even in that regard, we're going to create equality, and equality is being the road for equality is being paved with COVID in a lot of ways right now. It's being forced.
Wow. You brought up some things that I had not thought of, and maybe that's because I'm a man. But with some of those, getting ready and kind of the social norms that go into work, yeah, those are for the most part, evened out or eliminated. And I have thought about how Zoom and video chat has leveled the playing field in a different way. Like when I think about the power dynamic that comes with going into your boss's office, right? They're in the corner office. They have maybe the big leather chair, big view or something along those lines, or even in a classroom where you have the professor up at front, lecturing to everyone, and all the students are in their chairs. But now we're all just a little square on a screen. And it feels leveling to me. Like I remember when this was all happening at the very beginning, and these big names in higher education were doing webinars, and then I just started to feel like, yeah, I don't know if they know much more than me, or I don't know if I can learn as much from this person as I can from just a career services professional down the street at a small college who's living in the world that I'm living in. It just felt very humbling all of a sudden that everyone, with the absence of the physical power dynamic that we're so often used to, everyone felt evened out. And I could really see their level of expertise, their skill, their advice for what it was, not for who it was or the situation in which I was receiving it.
I think for us, Zoom has made some challenges within communication, because we are a global organization. So we don't have those structured hours where we're all in the office, where we used to all be in the office on very specific days, and then remote others. So COVID has presented some challenges for us, but more flexibility in the way we work, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Allie, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you and getting your experience, your perspective, not only on sales development, but I feel like we covered a lot of ground in different areas today. Do you have a favorite book, movie, or podcast? I know you listed off a few earlier, but is there one that you would leave this audience with that they should read, watch, or listen to in the future?
Yeah, podcast. Definitely listen to the Sales Engagement podcast with Mark Cosglow.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, it'll be a great way to pave that path of understanding in the role.
Excellent. Thank you for that advice, Allie. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for your engagement as an alumna and all that you do for Menlo College day in and day out. And it's so nice that us as staff have alumni like you to reach out to as a resource, and students have alumni like you to reach out to as a resource. I always say that in the job search, your first line of defense is a strong alumni network, and your last line of defense is a strong alumni network. So thank you for staying engaged and being part of this podcast. And for everyone, you've been listening to an episode of our Coffee Chat series, part of the Leverage Your Potential podcast, hosted by the Career Services Office. I've been your host, Dylan, my co-host, Bianca, and our guest today, Allie Young, Sales Development Representative at Panoply. And you can catch all of our other episodes at anchor.fm or on our blog, blog.menlo.edu/career-services. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leverage Your Potential podcast. Episodes are posted weekly and can be found on our blog at blog.menlo.edu/career-services/. Make it a great day.